Hi, I'm Gary with Gary's Wine and Marketplace, here with a good friend Don Hartford from Hartford Winery, Sonoma. Probably my favorite Sonoma winery, from quality of wine to just beauty. The winery it's breathtaking, it's spectacular. First, Don, tell me about what we're going to be tasting today, and then I'd love you to tell us about the winery.
Thanks, Gary. It's wonderful to be here. Today we're going to be tasting our Russian River Valley Chardonnay, our Stone Cote Vineyard Chardonnay, our Russian River Valley Pinot Noir, Land's Edge Pinot Noir, and our Russian River Valley Zinfandel.
Got a lot of work ahead of me.
Yeah.
Why don't I start tasting, and then you tell us about Hartford Winery.
Yeah, well, we started Hartford Family Winery back in 1994, about 20 years ago, and we specialize in making single vineyard designated wines. So last vintage we made a good 22 wines, and about 18 of them were single vineyards in very small bottlings. Our typical bottling is 500 cases, 300 cases are what we do. Unlike with our single vineyards, our Russian River Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Old Vine Zinfandel, these are bottlings that have a little bit more volume to them. So still pretty small. We're talking 3,000 cases of the Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, and maybe 1,500 cases or so of the Old Vine Zinfandel. But they are made to tell the story of their region. So with the Russian River Chard we just tasted, there is that richness in it, but there's also this nice lift of acidity in the mid palate of that Russian River wine that gives it a lot of life and vivacity. Has this almost kind of a candied ginger finish to the wine that really drives the finish. So a beautiful example, I think, of what Russian River Chardonnay can be.
So I thought you had a lot of color on the Russian River. This, it even takes it up another level of color, and I mean, the richness in the mouth, the creamy texture, and again, caramel nuttiness to it.
Yeah, so this is our Stone Cote Vineyard Chardonnay, and Stone Cote is blocked within the Durrell Vineyards. It's an uplifted riverbed from millions of years ago that has these river stones strewn throughout it. It's this really rich, broad wine in the mouth, held together by this whetstone minerality. It has very unique fruit profile where it's not your typical apple and pear.
Yeah.
It's more of a white peach, nectarine kind of a fruit profile in the wine. So just a delicious, delicious Chardonnay.
And now we're going to do the Russian River 2012 Pinot Noir.
Pinot Noir. And so this Pinot Noir is a sister wine to our Russian River Valley Chardonnay. Again, a wine that's a little more widely available than our single vineyard wines. And again, has some really beautiful color to the wine. And when we made this wine, the same theme as with the Russian River Chardonnay. We have been making wine in the Russian River Valley for over 20 years. In our minds, we have our strong opinions about what the personality of the Russian River should show in Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. In the case of this wine, we were looking for a little bit of that plowed earth, a little bit of cola in the wine. Also, it has this pretty kind of cherry and berry fruit profile.
Yeah, it's funny for me. I didn't get the cola when you said it. I said I get it. I get the berry,
Yeah.
you know, and I get there's a little earthiness, a little mineral, but the flavor it envelops my mouth. You know, it's got a richness that, and the price point is awesome. But you get a richness that you don't always expect from this price point Pinot Noir. It's delicious.
Well, thanks. Yeah, there's one component in this wine too I think that people find intriguing is part of the blend from this wine we take from 3 different subregions in the Russian River. One of the regions we have an estate vineyard in Green Valley, and it has a citrus quality to it, almost like a blood orange that hits the mid palate of the wine. Orange zest, sometimes people would describe it as. And again, very delicious component to this wine, and part of, I think, what you can find in great examples of Russian River Valley Pinot Noir.
And now, 2012?
Land's
no,
Edge.
2012 Land's Edge Pinot Noir.
Correct. And this is a wine that comes from what some people refer to as the true Sonoma coast. It's primarily from a vineyard that's north of Flowers and Hirsch.
Ah, I
and
get it.
Marcassin.
Land's Edge, water.
Right, exactly. We're often trying to do that, to tell the story of the place and the name of the wine. So Land's Edge, this is at 1,000 feet in 1,200 feet in elevation. It's got one little ridge between it and the ocean, and it really shows that terroir of these coastal ridges. You stop and think about it, Gary, how many places in the world do you grow Pinot Noir that are on anything that could be described as a mountaintop.
Yeah.
You think about Burgundy, it's benchland. Russian River, it's benchland. Willamette Valley, it's benchland. So this is pretty high. It's not Denver, but it's 1,000 feet in elevation. So non-alluvial soils. It's uplifted seabed from millions of years ago. So you end up with this kind of a fine grain polish. But also with this Land's Edge Pinot Noir, a couple of vintages ago, I think it was the 05 or 06 vintage, the sommelier for the White House paired it with a ribeye steak. And I think it tells kind of that story of the stoniness you're finding in the minerality. This Pinot Noir, this Land's Edge Pinot Noir, will stand up to things that aren't maybe typical Pinot Noir fare, where you're always thinking salmon and duck and all pork and all sorts of things with
it's interesting that one of the first, I think it was the first time I visited Hartford, we went out to dinner after at a local restaurant, and we brought a couple bottles of Pinot Noir with us, and the sommelier came over and said, "Would you like us to decant those?" Mm-hmm. And I'm like, "Really?" He said, "Oh, Hartford Pinot Noirs, they're so big and rich and lush. We recommend decanting them." And I got to tell you, it worked.
Great.
And it was really impressive.
Well, thank you.
Now we're going to dive into a Zinfandel.
Correct, and this is our Russian River Valley Zin, and we make 4 or 5 single vineyard designated Zinfandels of about 300 cases each year. Then we steal barrels from each one of those single vineyards in order to make this Russian River Valley Zinfandel. And there are several things we think are pretty remarkable about our Zins. First of all, they come from 100-year-old vineyards. So we're talking about vines that are about 2 feet wide and 2 feet high and only have a couple clusters they're trying to ripen each year. That's pretty significant because you get great intensity from these older vines, very low yields. Secondly, we make wines from the Russian River area. And if you think, where does Zinfandel grow, Old Vine Zinfandel? You know, they're growing in places like Dry Creek and Paso Robles and Napa and Amador. Think regions that are a little bit warmer than the Russian River. So this cold region drives more acidity in the grapes and in the wine. So you get more brightness, berry, cherry kind of notes in the wines rather than raisin and plum and prune.
I don't get any raisin or plum, but it's got great flavor and texture. There's a defining character to me to all the wines, and that's flavor texture. And that comes through in the Zin. I don't drink a lot of Zin anymore because I find sometimes they can be too rich for me, too big. This has great big flavors, but is not too big.
Yeah, and I think that the third thing that's remarkable about our Zinfandels goes directly to the point you're making, Gary, and that these Zinfandels we make like Pinot Noir. So a lot of people still make Zinfandel like a Bordeaux varietal, like a Cabernet or a Merlot, which means they're a little bit rougher. Zinfandel is a thin-skinned grape, more like Pinot Noir than it is like Cabernet. And so what we do is we don't crush the berries. We use 100% destemmed berries. We go through and we sort through the clusters. We sort through the berries. We pull out little pieces of stem. We go through punch downs, cold soaks like we do with our Pinot Noirs, 100% French oak on these Zinfandels. So we're trying to drive a little bit more elegance in these Zins by all these Pinot Noir winemaking techniques.
It's funny, my second taste through, I'm starting to pick up some pepper, like little white pepper.
White pepper, yeah.
And that makes me salivate for some barbecued ribs, by the way.
Oh, I know.
So I think maybe on the way out to dinner we should stop at if we can find a rib house in Madison. But I got to tell you, it's an awesome twist to Zinfandel. It's great. Anything else you want to share about Hartford Winery while I finish drinking?
Boy, Gary, I mean, it's a place that, like I say, I've been making wine there for 20 years, and we're having a heck of a lot of fun doing it. And
well, I'd like to thank you for coming, and to Heaven on Earth in Sonoma.
Well, thank you very much, Gary.
Thank you.